In this video, we are interested to understand what is known as market equilibrium. How does one achieve equilibrium in a particular market? So let's take an hypothetical case where you have prices, you have 10, 8, 6, 4, and 2, and you have quantity demanded and quantity supplied. If you notice, these are the same numbers that I have been using in my other video relating to the markets. So you can associate them. Now, here we figure out that if a table is given to us, so if this piece of information is given, then what level will we achieve equilibrium, right? So if you think about each price level, let's say if price is 10, here we have 40 units supplied and only 20 had been demanded. Let's take coffee, 40 cups of coffee is supplied and 20 cups is demanded. Then that means that there is more supply than demand, right? Demand is less and supply is more, and hence you have more supply, excess supply, right? Then you think about price 8. At 8, 30 cups are demanded and 30 cups are supplied, and hence quantity supplied is equal to quantity are demanded, and hence there is no excess demand or excess supply, and this we call it equilibrium. And we'll understand how and why do we call or use this word called equilibrium. Uh, then you think about price of 6. At price 6, there are 40 cups been demanded and 20 being supplied, and hence more is demand than the supply, and hence you have excess demand, right? Same thing with price of 4. 50 is demand, 10 is supply, so demand is greater than supply, and hence you have excess demand. And again here too, you have quantity demanded at 60 and no one wants and no, there is no supply of the product, and there is excess demand, right? Now this will be the market condition at different prices. Now we think about what happens to the price if there is a particular market condition, right? So if you have excess supply, if there is excess inventory, it's very common to see markdown, right? So as the spring approaches and as the summer months approach, the winter jackets and clothes gets marked down because there is excess supply in that context. uh, and when you have excess demand, people would be willing to pay higher prices or bid up the price because there is not enough available, right? And hence there is, in case of excess demand, price tend to go up, and in case of or situations of excess supply, price tends to go down. And at price of 8, the market will achieve what is we call equilibrium, right? At this point, the prices will stop moving. It At all other price level, either the prices are going up or it's going down, and hence the prices are moving. But at this level, prices will stop moving, or what we call there will be equilibrium in the market, and at which is basically a situation where QD is equal to your QS, quantity demand is equal to quantity supplied. We'll use Q star to represent equilibrium quantity and P star to represent equilibrium price. So in this case, P star is 8 and Q star is 30. Obviously, when I represent this star, keep this in mind that Q star represents both demand and supply. They just happen to be the same number, 30. Right? It's a different idea. There is production and there is a demand side both. Now, what if one is interested to analyze the equilibrium in terms of a graph, right? So here's the second way to look at the story. You have the supply curve, which is upward sloping, right? And you have the demand curve, which is downward sloping. And then you have different price levels. And for each price level, if you think about this price level, at this price level, there is more supply than demand. So there is excess supply. At this price level, there is more demand than supply, and hence which is excess demand, right? And so at all prices other than this, prices tend to be moving, or the market is not in equilibrium. The market has not cleared itself. The market is facing a situation where either the demand is greater or the supply is greater, but they are not equal. But at this point, you would achieve equilibrium represented by this P star and Q star to represent price equilibrium and quantity equilibrium, and we'll call this point E just to represent equilibrium, right? And at this point, the prices will stop moving because the demand meets the supply, or market has cleared, so to speak. The third way one can understand the exact same idea of equilibrium is using a mathematical relationship. So here's a demand equation, and here's a supply equation. How does one know whether it's a demand or a supply equation? Well, of course, one can look at the sign, right? There's a negative relationship between quantities and price, which means this is about demand, and there is a positive relationship between quantity and price, and hence this is the supply equation. And we know that in equilibrium, the equilibrium condition is that QD, or quantity demanded, has to equal to quantity supplied, which has to be the same number we represent by Q star, right? So here we have two equations, one a demand equation and a supply equation, and we are interested to figure out the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity, right? And so what is the equilibrium condition? QD is equal to QS. So basically we are saying, and it has to have at one price, right? So it means that 14 minus 0.2 QD is equal to 2 plus 0.2 QS in equilibrium, right? But in equilibrium, QD is equal to QS, right? And hence there is no need to use QD and QS, but just use Q because they are the same number, right? In equilibrium, of course, and that's what we are interested to find out. And so when you solve for this, what we get is 12 is equal to 0.4 Q, right? And then Q star will turn out to be 30. Okay. Now we can use this Q star information and plug it into either the demand equation or the supply equation and get your P star, right? So say P is equal to 14 minus 0.2 Q star, which is 30. You will get price equilibrium equal to 8. And had you put this in a supply equation, 2 plus 0.2 times 30, you would still end up getting 6. Of course, you'll get the same number, obviously, right? That's how you started. You started with the condition that this price and this price are the same. So you'll end up getting the same price, and which also makes intuitive sense. So equilibrium price in this scenario is 8 and equilibrium quantity is 30.